Life is too short, too precious, and too purposeful to be drained by those who thrive on chaos, manipulation, and negativity. Toxic people come in many disguises, sometimes as friends, sometimes as colleagues, and tragically, even as family. They smile in your face, but quietly sabotage your peace. They speak words that appear harmless, but are laced with poison. They thrive when you are weakened and stumble when you rise. The danger of toxic people is not merely what they say or do, but what they pull out of you. They provoke anger, they stir insecurity, they plant seeds of doubt, and before long, your joy, clarity, and strength are compromised. That is their battlefield, drawing you into their web so you waste your energy fighting shadows instead of walking in light. But there is a smarter way. Wisdom teaches us that we cannot always change others, but we can choose how we engage, how we respond, and how we guard the sacred space of our hearts. This message is not about hatred, revenge, or bitterness. It is about strategy, discernment, and walking in freedom. Today, we uncover the smartest way to deal with toxic people. Toxic people often present themselves in a way that seems convincing, appealing, or even admirable, and that is where the danger begins. They wear masks that can look like kindness, loyalty, or even spirituality, but beneath the surface, their actions tell a very different story. The first and most vital step in dealing with them is to stop judging only by appearances and start evaluating the fruit of their lives. Words can deceive, emotions can be manipulated, and outward appearances can put on a show, but the consistent patterns of behavior reveal the truth. Someone may speak endlessly of loyalty, yet consistently betray confidence. Another may act humble, but always maneuvers to control outcomes and spotlight themselves. These contradictions cannot be hidden forever. What you must train yourself to do is not get caught in the glow of their performance, but to examine what results follow them. Do they bring peace or confusion? Do they leave people built up or torn down? Do they encourage growth or smother it with control and negativity? This principle is uncomfortable because it forces us to confront people we might care for deeply. Toxic individuals are often masters at mixing good with bad, so the moments of kindness or generosity can blind us to the damage they cause. But one healthy apple does not redeem a basket full of rotten fruit. If you continually ignore the warning signs because of the occasional pleasant gesture, you will keep yourself entangled in cycles of frustration. Recognizing fruit over masks requires courage because it strips away the illusions we desperately want to believe. The truth may hurt, but it also liberates, because once you clearly see what you are dealing with, you are no longer bound to the false hopes or empty promises toxic people dangle before you. Another critical part of this recognition is understanding that toxic people rely on patterns. Anyone can have a bad day, anyone can speak out of turn, anyone can fail to live up to their best. But toxic people show repetition, consistent lying, repeated manipulation, a constant pull toward negativity. Watch the rhythm of their lives, and you will begin to see whether you are dealing with a momentary lapse or a deeply ingrained way of operating. It is the pattern, not the occasional incident, that identifies toxicity. Once you learn to recognize the fruit, you will no longer be ensnared by guilt or pressured into endless cycles of giving them one more chance. True change is seen in new fruit, not in new excuses. The smartest way to deal with toxic people begins here. Open your eyes, look beyond the disguise, and refuse to be deceived by what they claim to be. Wisdom is not cynical, but it is discerning. It is willing to cut through appearances in order to protect what truly matters: your peace, your mission, and the purpose you were created to fulfill. That clarity is the foundation of every step that follows. Guarding your spirit with discernment is one of the most powerful defenses you have against toxic people, because the battlefield is rarely outside, it is within. Toxic individuals may use words, actions, or manipulation, but the real damage happens when those things enter your heart and mind unchecked. That is why discernment is not simply a suggestion, it is a necessity. Discernment allows you to filter what comes toward you so that not every criticism, not every outburst, and not every emotional snare takes root. Without it, you absorb poison until it becomes part of you. With it, you can hear the same words, witness the same behavior, but respond from a place of clarity instead of confusion. Discernment begins with slowing down your reactions. Toxic people thrive on catching you off guard, on pushing you into a hurried response that bypasses reflection. When you take a step back, breathe, and evaluate, you weaken their control. Instead of letting emotions dictate your choices, you learn to weigh what is being said against truth and wisdom. Ask yourself, Does this accusation align with reality? Is this attempt to guilt me grounded in facts, or is it manipulation? Toxic individuals will often package their attacks in just enough truth to make them believable, but discernment separates the genuine from the deceptive. Another layer of guarding your spirit is learning to recognize when your peace is being stolen. Peace is the signal light of discernment. If you leave a conversation or interaction feeling drained, confused, or less certain of yourself every time, that is not a coincidence. It is the fruit of toxicity. Many ignore this signal and tell themselves they are being too sensitive, when in reality, their spirit is warning them that they are under attack. Listening to that inner alarm is not weakness, it is wisdom. By paying attention to how people's presence consistently affects you, you gain insight into whether they should have access to your inner circle. Discernment also means remembering that not every battle is worth fighting. Toxic people often bait you into arguments, knowing that if they can occupy your energy with endless debates or conflicts, they win by distraction. Guarding your spirit means choosing silence when words would only fuel the fire. It means stepping back when the conversation has no path to resolution. This is not cowardice, it is strategy. Your energy is too valuable to be wasted proving a point to someone who has no interest in truth. Guarding your spirit is about stewardship. You are responsible for protecting what God has entrusted to you, your peace, your clarity, and your calling. Toxic people seek to chip away at these treasures, but discernment closes the gate. It does not make you cold or unloving. Rather, it allows you to love wisely, engage carefully, and refuse to let poison dictate your path. The smartest way to deal with toxic people must begin here, by filtering everything through discernment so that their chaos never becomes your identity. Setting boundaries without bitterness is one of the hardest yet most liberating steps when dealing with toxic people. Many struggle here because they confuse boundaries with cruelty, or they believe that to distance themselves is to hate. Yet boundaries are not about punishing another person. They are about protecting your peace and preserving the mission you were given in life. Without boundaries, toxic people will consume every ounce of energy you have, leaving you exhausted, resentful, and unable to focus on what truly matters. With boundaries, you define the lines of what is acceptable, and you free yourself from their ability to control your emotions, time, and spirit. It is important to recognize that toxic people do not respect natural limits. They often feel entitled to your attention, your energy, and even your forgiveness. Left unchecked, they will intrude on every aspect of your life. That is why establishing boundaries requires clarity. You must be able to say within yourself, I will not engage in destructive conversations. I will not allow manipulation to dictate my decisions. I will not sacrifice my peace for someone else's drama. These declarations are not acts of anger. They are affirmations of value. They remind you that your time, your heart, and your future are worth guarding. The challenge comes when guilt tries to invade. Toxic individuals will often accuse you of being unloving, selfish, or cold when you create distance. They may try to twist your boundaries into evidence that you are the problem. But understand this: healthy people respect boundaries, toxic people resist them. If someone becomes angry simply because you are protecting yourself, that in itself confirms why the boundary was necessary. The key is to set the line firmly, but without resentment. Bitterness will weigh you down and keep you tied emotionally to the very person you are trying to distance yourself from. Freedom comes when you can establish the boundary with a steady heart, not a vengeful one. Boundaries can take many forms. Sometimes it is limiting the amount of time you spend with someone. Other times it may be choosing not to answer every message or refusing to engage in conversations that spiral into hostility. In extreme cases, it may mean complete separation. Each situation is different, but the principle remains the same. You control the access toxic people have to your life. They do not get to decide that for you. This is not abandonment of love. It is the wise stewardship of self. When you set boundaries without bitterness, you begin to reclaim control over your own spirit. You stop living in reaction to the chaos of others and start walking in the calm assurance of your own values. You will notice a new strength rise within you, not because the toxic people have changed, but because you have changed how you allow them to affect you. This is one of the smartest ways to deal with toxic people, drawing clear lines with grace so that you can live free without carrying the weight of anger. Toxic people thrive on reaction. Their power over you is not in who they are, but in how they can manipulate your responses. They prod, provoke, and pressure until you lash out, and then they stand back and point to your anger as proof that you are the problem. They bait you with criticism, guilt, or exaggerated offenses, knowing that if they can pull you into their storm, you will waste your energy fighting in a battle they designed. The smartest way to break their hold is to refuse the trap of reaction. It is not about ignoring every wrong or pretending the offense did not happen, but about mastering restraint so that your words and emotions remain under your control, not theirs. Silence, in this context, becomes a powerful weapon. It is not weakness, it is strategy. Silence denies them the satisfaction of dragging you into endless arguments. It creates space where you can evaluate rather than explode. Toxic individuals often feed on drama, and when you starve them of that drama, they lose their grip. Choosing not to respond in the heat of the moment keeps you from saying words you cannot take back and from escalating conflict that was never meant to be resolved. In silence, you are not surrendering. You are taking control. Another aspect of refusing reaction is learning the discipline of emotional detachment. This does not mean becoming unfeeling, but rather not allowing your emotions to be dictated by someone else's chaos. Toxic people may try to make you feel guilty, inferior, or constantly on trial. If you tie your worth to their words, you will live in constant fluctuation. Detachment allows you to hear their accusations without absorbing them, to see their games without playing along. You may not be able to stop them from speaking or scheming, but you can stop them from ruling your inner life. There is also wisdom in choosing when and how to speak. Sometimes the best answer is no answer. Other times, a calm, measured statement disarms the attack more effectively than a heated defense ever could. Toxic people expect hostility or submission. They are unprepared for calm, reasoned firmness. By refusing to let your emotions be hijacked, you strip them of their greatest tool. The refusal to react is not passivity, it is strength under control. It is the ability to see the game for what it is and to decline the invitation to play. This does not mean you accept abuse or tolerate mistreatment. It means you respond with clarity, not chaos. When you choose restraint over reaction, you shift the balance of power. You stop being a puppet pulled by strings of manipulation and become someone who cannot be moved off course by the noise of others. That is one of the smartest ways to deal with toxic people. By mastering your response, you deny them influence and keep your spirit anchored in peace. When dealing with toxic people, one of the most important safeguards you can establish is to anchor yourself in higher principles. Toxic individuals often attempt to destabilize your sense of self by attacking your worth, questioning your motives, or twisting your words. If your identity is built solely on the approval of others, you will be tossed around every time someone disapproves or rejects you. But when your foundation is rooted in truth about who you are, why you are here, and what you are called to accomplish, then no insult, manipulation, or betrayal has the power to uproot you. Toxic people thrive on pulling others into insecurity, yet the one anchored in higher principles cannot be easily moved. Anchoring yourself means knowing where your value comes from. It does not come from how others treat you, nor from whether they recognize your efforts or validate your presence. Toxic individuals may withhold encouragement, use silence as a weapon, or constantly shift the goalposts of approval. But if you draw your sense of worth from something greater, something unshakable, then their attempts lose power. You stop looking to them for validation and begin to live from a place of assurance. That shift alone disarms much of their influence. Another dimension of anchoring is remembering the moral compass that guides your actions. Toxic people will often attempt to drag you into their level, enticing you to respond with the same bitterness, deceit, or hostility they display. But higher principles remind you that integrity matters more than winning an argument. You do not have to compromise your values just to prove a point. By standing firm in truth and dignity, you demonstrate that you are not ruled by the chaos around you. Anchoring is not about denying the pain they cause. It is about refusing to let their behavior redefine who you are. Anchoring also brings perspective. When you are grounded, you recognize that not every insult requires a defense. Not every accusation deserves your energy, and not every conflict is worth your time. You learn to weigh situations against eternal truths rather than momentary emotions. Toxic people thrive in the immediate. They want to control this moment, this reaction, this exchange. But when you are anchored in higher principles, you play the long game. You measure your responses by what builds character, not by what satisfies impulse. Anchoring yourself in higher principles liberates you. You may not be able to stop toxic people from lying, manipulating, or criticizing, but you can stop them from controlling your inner world. Your stability comes from something greater than them, and that stability allows you to continue your mission undistracted. This is why anchoring is essential. It keeps you from being swayed by every storm, grounded in truth when deception surrounds you, and focused on what matters most. Toxic people cannot uproot someone whose roots go deeper than their attacks. That is the smartest way forward. Stand anchored, unshaken, and free. Releasing control and letting God deal with toxic people is perhaps the most counterintuitive yet freeing step you can take. The natural instinct when wronged, betrayed, or manipulated is to fight back, to prove your point, or to seek vindication. Toxic individuals understand this impulse well, and they often bait you into endless cycles of trying to expose them, correct them, or make them pay for their actions. But in doing so, you remain bound to them, your energy drained and your focus consumed. True wisdom is found in surrender, recognizing that justice, timing, and consequences belong to God, not to you. When you hand over the need for revenge, you step out of the endless tug of war and place the battle in the hands of the one who sees all. Letting God deal with them does not mean tolerating abuse or pretending their actions are harmless. It means you acknowledge that your role is to walk in obedience, truth, and integrity, while trusting that God will handle the matters beyond your control. This posture protects your heart from bitterness. Bitterness is the hidden toxin that does more damage to you than the original offense ever could. When you constantly replay the wrongs done against you, when you nurture the desire for payback, you bind yourself spiritually to the very people you want freedom from. Surrender severs that bond. It says, "I will not waste my life plotting against those who harmed me. I will live free, knowing God will take care of what I cannot." Releasing control also requires faith in divine timing. Toxic people often seem to prosper for a season. They manipulate, deceive, and yet appear to walk away unscathed. This can stir deep frustration, but appearances are temporary. Every action plants a seed, and every seed bears fruit in time. Trust that the seeds of deceit, manipulation, and destruction they scatter will eventually return to them. It is not your responsibility to make sure they reap what they have sown. Your responsibility is to keep your hands clean, your spirit free, and your heart focused on what God has called you to do. This surrender is not weakness. It is strength under divine authority. Anyone can lash out, but it takes true maturity to remain calm, steady, and faithful while trusting God to settle the account. By releasing control, you not only free yourself from the exhausting cycle of retaliation, but you also open your life to peace. Peace is the gift that comes when you refuse to fight battles that were never yours to fight in the first place. The smartest way to deal with toxic people is not to beat them at their own game, but to refuse to play altogether. Let God handle the justice, let Him handle the timing, and let Him carry the weight you were never meant to bear. In that surrender, you gain freedom, strength, and the unshakable assurance that no toxic person can steal what God has secured for you. Focusing on your mission rather than their drama is one of the clearest marks of wisdom when dealing with toxic people. Their greatest weapon is distraction. They pull you into endless cycles of arguments, emotional games, and manipulative traps until your energy is drained and your vision blurred. What they fear most is not your anger, not your retaliation, but your clarity, your ability to rise above their noise and continue walking forward with purpose. When you stay fixed on your calling, toxic people lose the leverage they crave. They thrive when you give them center stage. But when your eyes remain on your mission, you strip them of significance. Every life has an assignment, a unique contribution that no one else can fulfill. Toxic people work overtime to divert you from that assignment, because if you ever step fully into it, their power over you collapses. They may stir conflict, sow seeds of doubt, or continually provoke your emotions to keep you preoccupied. If you are not careful, months or even years can pass, with your focus consumed by managing their chaos instead of advancing your destiny. But when you deliberately choose to invest your energy in what matters, your growth, your family, your purpose, you reclaim time that was once wasted on battles that bore no fruit. Focusing on your mission does not mean ignoring reality. It means refusing to prioritize someone else's drama over your God-given direction. You acknowledge their behavior for what it is, but you decline to make it the compass of your life. Toxic people often demand urgency. They want immediate attention, immediate reactions, immediate involvement in their storms. But your mission requires patience, consistency, and long-term investment. By keeping your eyes on the bigger picture, you avoid being trapped in their short-term theatrics. This focus also reshapes your perspective on offense. Instead of asking, "Why are they treating me this way?" you begin asking, "How can I stay faithful to my calling in spite of this?" Toxic people lose their ability to define you when your identity is tied to something greater. Their words may sting, their actions may hurt, but they cannot derail you unless you hand them control. Every time you choose to stay committed to your path rather than detouring into their drama, you weaken their grip. Focusing on your mission provides clarity and resilience. It reminds you that your time is finite, your energy is valuable, and your purpose is sacred. You cannot afford to squander these gifts on endless cycles with people who refuse to change. By keeping your attention locked on where you are going, you create momentum that no toxic person can stop. This is the smartest way to deal with them, not by fighting every battle, not by proving every point, but by refusing to be sidetracked. Their drama fades when your mission shines brighter, and your life becomes a testimony that no amount of toxicity can extinguish true purpose.